Hi, with Tacitus today. Tacitus today, your pushback channel, and thank you for joining this audio live stream. In this essay, I'd like to talk about the issue, particularly the bigger firms, bigger international conglomerates, all head officed in white countries, how they are skiting and gloating over the fact that they are employing many more minorities than they are white people. So a recent article, I think it was in Bloomberg, and if I've got it understood it correctly, Matt Walsh also did a piece about this, where something in the order of, depending on whose numbers you look at, there's a few articles floating around, somewhere between 15 and 20% of the employees that have been hired over the last couple of years or so are white. All the rest have been minorities. And if I've understood it correctly, the minorities include or non-white people, but also, say, LGBTQ and that sort of thing. Now, I don't think there's any double counting in this. It's bound to be propaganda inserted in there, so it's a bit hard to get completely accurate numbers. But they're skiting about it and boasting about it, saying, "Look, we're a white firm in a white country with an all-white board of directors, and yet we've decided not to hire white people and we'll only hire unqualified non-white people. Aren't we fantastic?" Now, you'd have to say that insanity has gripped these organisations, and I believe it has. But are they really doing that? For example, are they hiring a lot of part-time cleaners or car park attendants, or other sort of have they employed a lot of casual labourers to do work, to sit on the reception desk or something? So it's a bit hard to tell. They've got token executives put around the place that are non-white and non-male, but I'm not sure how many of those. So anyway, the numbers are hard to get. Now, if you look at these same organisations and the advertisements they put on internet job boards, that sort of thing, you look at, they have more on there about their spruiking their credentials. We only hire black lesbians, and we've got more black lesbians than the other company down the road there around the corner. There's more about that than there is about the job most of the time. We only have we encourage black lesbians to apply for this job, and all that sort of nonsense is in there. And I should say that every one of the companies that engages in this, every single fucking one, is reliant on reliant on government contracts or government protection or protections afforded by government legislation. And these protections include monopolies, oligopolies, cartel pricing power, this sort of thing. So all of these people are in one way or another dependent on the government to shovel taxpayer money into their coffers or whatever, big pharma, the list goes on. Now, all of them have a pretty bad image as exploiting people, being uncaring, ransacking the public purse to get government contracts, cozy sweetheart backroom deals, giving prestigious, well-paid jobs to the offspring of politicians. I mean, the list goes on. So they it's incumbent on them to try and get on the front foot in terms of public relations, because they're all pretty onerous, these firms, odious rather. So they have to be constantly press releasing, how many black lesbians they hired and how many black lesbians they've elevated into senior management, and how many gay black guys are directors of research and development, and this sort of thing. So part of this is just showmanship, I suppose you'd call it. But let's look at the overall numbers here of the employment. Now, if it's a rate of something around 6 to 1 that they're employing non-white people over white people, then that is a serious problem in a white country. If they were employing mostly brown people in Asia or mostly black people in Africa, fine. Okay, no problem there, no query. When I was in Japan, or the times I visited Japan on business, I never once did I see a white or non-Japanese employee there. They were all, there were no black people anywhere. The only white people were visiting business people, or maybe tourists, en route to seeing Mount Fujiyama or something. But there was certainly no white people working there. Now the same, in fact, wherever I went, whether it was Malaysia, whether it was Thailand, Taiwan, Korea, around South America. If I went to a non-white country, the Middle East, I went to a non-white country, I hardly ever saw. I can't remember. I saw a couple of white guys in Hong Kong before it went over to China. Where else? There are quite a few white people in Singapore, but that was a very international city with a lot of, particularly in finance, a lot of regional headquarters there. So that wasn't surprising. Malaysia, I might have seen one or two people, but really hardly any. So why are those countries not also practicing this affirmative action employment? They're not, and there are good reasons for it. Coming back to the numbers being employed, when I looked at the companies that are particularly skiting about how many non-white people they're hiring, or how few white people they're hiring. Again, this isn't a white fucking country, for Christ's sake. You look at the whole board of directors; they're all white. You look at the financiers behind them, the Black Rocks, and the head people there are all white. I mean, they may be Jewish, but they're all white. You look at the government panels that are signing off on it, and the political party working committees are signing. They're either all white or nearly all white. So really, the whole thing is white people getting together to decide not to hire white people, which seems quite astonishing. The media that applaud it are saying, again, are all white. So this is an incredible. I don't think we've ever seen this in the history of the world, where there's a class of white people that are so grimly, fanatically determined to sell out and crush other white people, of their own, citizens in their own nation state, their own neighbours, their own, people. That's I don't think we've ever seen this before. It's quite remarkable. But this is how it is now. When a smaller business that has to compete in some way, that isn't just competing on the cheapness of wages, because that then again swings back the other way, and they have to hire cheap peasant labour from the third world. But if you look at anything in between where skills are required in a competitive business situation or competitive commercial situation, then you go to office after office where there are only white people working there, or you may have a token brown person somewhere, but that's it. So there's still employment opportunities, but it should be noted that the employment opportunity, or that the sector, the commercial sector of competitive business, is shrinking almost by the day in the Western world, and more of the total business transactions are being taken up by these multinational firms that are where the World Economic Forum, the supposed national governments, the United Nations, and these firms, that they're effectively merging into one. They're pretty much almost there. And the big finance, they're all merging into one sort of amorphous mass, and they're really in control of pretty much all the business now. Or not all. No, that's not right. An increasing share of business now. Also, there are the relative rewards have spread. There was a time, and then again, this was 25 years ago, when government jobs and jobs at NGOs, that sort of quangos, they didn't pay very well. they paid well below the sort of jobs you get in the private sector. So of the top paid jobs in the country, in Australia, for example, the top paid jobs, you'd have none. Nothing would be from the NGO, the government sector, not zip. Today, it's completely reversed. If I go through the best paid jobs in Australia now, which I do time to time to see what's going on there, you're lucky if even 10% are from the private sector, and those are from the big firms that are again part of this amorphous mass of integrated government, big business, and World Economic Forum, big finance, big pharma, and so on. So so outside of that, if you're looking at medium-sized companies or smaller firms, then there's no jobs. None of the best-paid jobs from those companies are in that top well-paid jobs category. And the sort of money that is being paid for NGOs now is astonishing. For example, part-time job for NGO, which comes with generous benefits, pays just on 3 times the national average full-time wage, and it's a part-time job. Some of the government jobs or Quango jobs are paying 10, 11, 12, even 15 times the average wage. So an activist working for an NGO could be paid twice what a Supreme Court judge is paid, and things like that. So it's so the proportion of jobs in the private sector, the shrinking sort of medium-sized business private sector, where it's still an opportunity for white people to be employed. Now, this claim that affirmative action is necessary to make sure that minorities sort of get jobs, I never found that so. My experience, certainly in the workplace, and I was very open to hiring anybody who's qualified. I was probably one of the more open-minded guys, around in that group. There were those who were just absolutely opposed to hiring minorities on the basis none of them are any good, and I was sympathetic to that point of view, certainly by my own experience. But I was still open to the idea. Well, that doesn't mean everybody's no good. Now, I knew a lot of women that insisted that they would all be managing directors or presidents of banks and huge sprawling corporations. They'd all be running some super high paid prestigious job if only they were a man. And I'd be regaled with stories of I have to work twice as hard as any man just to keep my job. And I've worked alongside these ladies making the claims, and I certainly didn't see it. If they were working twice as hard, then it must have been very discreet because I missed it. There were women that sort of they would make work for themselves by going around in circles and spinning wheels, and then try and say, well, that's hard work, and therefore I deserve a promotion. I would point out to them, particularly if they reported to me, no, you're just going around in circles. If you're going to be effective, go ahead. And there's none of these. I can't recall a single woman that was able to put forward, female employee, was able to put forward the case that she was way smarter than any of the guys, and therefore was deserving of a substantial promotion or reward. Now, I did get women coming to me and insisting that they wanted a promotion and that they deserved it, and they were super geniuses, and I got all that sort of stuff. I remember there was one lady. She was a sales representative, quite a good one, business development. Quite a good one actually. I don't think she was the best or whatever, and I think she was good at getting in front of people and smiling sweetly and getting them to listen to. She was good at that. In terms of the administration of bringing the business in the door, I didn't think she was. But she was nonetheless, reasonably effective. She came and said she wanted the sales manager's job, and it had come, or was about to become vacant, and or sales director, I think it was. And so, no, I don't think that suits you. Why not? And And I think out of like, I don't know, 20 salespeople, she was, in terms of numbers, coming fifth or sixth, somewhere around there. And so I said, well, you're not the best. What are you doing? Why should you get it? And she was saying, well, it's a matter of equity. I'm a woman, and women have never get this job, so you should give it to me because. And I said, no, that's no fucking reason to get one. But it shows that thinking and that rationale and that reasoning is very much something how women think it through. Well, I don't. I'm the best. I'm the best. No, you're not. Look at this. I can prove you're nowhere near the best. Well, that doesn't matter anyway. I should get it because no. Oh, well, the reason you're not giving it to me is because you're a misogynist. No, don't give me that. So I've never found any woman making a convincing argument. Now, some could say, well, their boss is an idiot. So on a relative basis, given they're not as dumb as their boss, they are therefore, entitled to a promotion because the boss is so stupid. The male boss is so stupid. Very few women like to work for other women bosses. Most of the women, certainly I don't want to work for a man. Now, they say women bosses can get, bitchy, or it can get, petty and spiteful, and these sort of things. And sometimes it can with men too, by the way. But so they prefer to work for male bosses. Now, on the issue of affirmative action for minorities generally, I always took the view that if you're the best qualified, then you should be entitled. But whenever minority people came to me demanding pay rises or promotions or whatever, I try and point out to them, okay, as if you move into this next phase or this next step up, you're going to have the spotlight really on you. You're going to have to perform. Don't think just because you can tell other people what to do that suddenly you don't have to perform. That suddenly you're the boss and no one's going to be watching. It's not like that. And I try and explain to them that as they move up the chain, that the level of responsibility increases and the nature of it increases. And if they fuck up or fail, then they're going to have to pay the price for that. And when you, particularly women, but when you point out that added responsibility it moves them into a strictly pass or fail type category, or did then, I don't know if it would now. I don't think it would now actually, but then they shy away. Oh no, I want the promotion, I want the prestige, I want to be able to go around saying, hey, I'm now the sales director, but I don't want the responsibility. Screw that. I don't want to have some pass off. I don't want to be judged, and this is again very much part of the minority thing. So when we look at affirmative action jobs for minorities, including white women even, the idea is, well, I want the prestige, I want the pay rise, and I want to be able to put CEO or president on my business card, but I don't want the responsibility. I just want to be a little girlie that pretends and plays in the sandpit, but I don't want the responsibility for the outcome. If things go wrong, I want to blame someone else. And I haven't come across any woman who's really wanted the responsibility. They've wanted the prestige and the money, but not the responsibility. And this is something that I've noticed on that. Now, the other, I guess, is something else is that when again, I'm thinking about when I really started work, the HR department for most organisations was very small. You might have the HR manager, I mean, they called it personnel back in the day. You might have the HR manager, then a couple of people. Even in a big organisation, you wouldn't have very many. And really, the payroll department or the payroll administration department sort of morphed into really an HR department, I guess. And so anyway, these HR departments now are like a gazillion times bigger than they were. So when we look at women entering the workforce in large numbers, they've typically gone into the areas where there's been a substantial expansion, like nursing. There's many more nurses, specialist nurses, specialist medical people. A lot of them paid really shit money, by the way, that are doing that are jobs for them. HR departments have expanded out of sight, as have marketing departments and so on. So most of the women and minority have actually gone into those sort of jobs. But the pool of jobs that pay well is shrinking quite dramatically, actually, all across the Western world. And so there's a concentration of wealth. CEOs that were paid 5 times the average wage, 50 years ago are now being paid 200 times the average wage. So there's been seismic shifts in salaries and payments and so on going around. But on the matter of affirmative action jobs and not hiring white people in the big firms, wherever we see a reduction in market competition and an increasing reliance on government contracts, sweetheart backroom deals, cartel pricing, that's where we see the increase in minority hiring. But it's all window dressing. And most of the jobs now, certainly when I go around the business we do, most of the jobs I'm coming across, diversity officers, all those sorts of things, and all sorts of sort of lower mid-level administrative jobs. They're all jobs that are done by box ticking, so that the job is reduced to just a checklist. It's not a job anymore that needs to be done. It's just somebody ticking a checklist. So a lot of these jobs, particularly in the public service, where they create jobs for Indians and black people and so on, these jobs aren't needed. They actually don't exist. So we've got this massive number of jobs that are non-productive jobs that produce nothing, create nothing, and deliver nothing, and deliver no benefit. They're being created just to give employment to minorities. You've been fantastic today to your Pushback Channel. Thank you for listening.